We're back from executive session at 8:01 PM.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the town of Winchester accept the police contract as negotiated by Ryan and Ryan and the United Public Service Employees Union, COPS 424, unit number 330.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Moving on to item number 3. Consider and possibly act, item number 4, consider and possibly act on the town manager's proposed fiscal year 25 budget.
Can I just ask about,
Candy?
just for process,
Yes, ma'am.
I think we should all be in agreement tonight that, I think that we all should be in agreement tonight to make the final adjustments in the budget tonight so that the town manager and the finance director, I guess she's back there, can have a copy ready for paper copies as well as to put it online. Because if we're gonna have the public hearing on Monday, by putting it online tomorrow and making it available, it will be, people will be able to see it before the public hearing. If everybody would be in agreement to that, just for a process piece.
Is that feasible, Bob? Anne Marie?
Yes, I think it is. We've discussed that. But right,
You'd be able to have it online?
we'll put it online. We should be able to do that by tomorrow.
What I'm saying, Anne Marie, is that we should make the final, it's not final adjustments, because we still have, after the public hearing, we can make more adjustments, and we have time to make more adjustments up till April 26th. But for the public meeting, people can come in and see where our level of budgeting is right now. They can comment on any positions that they, or any budget items that they want, and then we could continue to adjust from there, but I think it would be time to get a document out.
Yes, the answer is yes, we can print it whenever it's.
So you guys can do it, but the rest of this board, is that process acceptable?
I think so. I
think so.
agree. I think it should be.
And then Monday night, we have, the public hearing on the entire budget, both sides.
Yes.
All
Like, I
together.
was gonna ask, what color are you tonight?
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Glenn just went to get the microphone for Anne Marie. I prefer not, my poor little ears.
If this is in your way, I can put it in.
No, I'm good.
Everybody can understand.
These are more changes that you bring.
Yeah, this is all the assessor that we can do with the 82,000. That's the 300 for the school. That's, we talked about the 50 for the grant income from the social services.
So we don't have the deputy chief on here. That'd be the only other change.
Right, we'd had that back in. That'd be about 170,000 for maybe everything. We're waiting on the microphone.
The microphone.
If you want to start, go ahead.
All right. Well, we talked before about, you've all seen the last budget. So this one was, we've had a couple changes on here. One of them, if you want to look at the sheet in front of you, we've talked about a budget change of adding, this is a reduction of 50,000 we took off the budget on the grant income. Even though we know we might get that, proper accounting procedure is not to record that if you don't know you have it, even though we know we're going to get that. So you don't really record that as income if you don't have it secured, even though we're pretty sure we're going to. So that would be 50,000, which is what we anticipated to fund the rest of that position. So,
So are we adding 50,000?
no, we're
That
subtracting.
would be a removal.
We had it in there.
This change hasn't been made, but
The last
In
budget.
the version that you have, it's left in there from the last motion that was made to add that in the last version of the budget. It is still, sorry, it's still in the budget right now. It is proposed that we should take that out because the grant is not secured.
We
and-
authorized it, so we put it in there, but we don't have it secured yet.
Okay, so basically what you're saying now is you're shifting the social services director to 100% funded by property taxes.
That would be the impact of it, yes. Because we don't, typically, when you budget for revenue, you don't want to budget for revenue if we have not secured, if we don't have the
We were
revenue
viewing that as
secured.
an accounting procedure, but
But the fact is that if you do this, if we cut this by grants, right? Because the position exists right now as 50% grants and 50% salary.
correct. And we don't have that 50% grant right
Right,
now.
so if we don't, then we're fully funding it.
Yes,
And I think at the
Correct.
last meeting, we were looking at that position, and the fact that it was being 50% funded was one reason it didn't become a potential budget cut. So the fact that that funding isn't here now kind of does change.
Well, the funding was not in place with the last version. The funding was not in place. That was a decision that was made to put that in.
anticipating funding.
So
But I
would-
think that, but the presentation to us in terms of budgeting for the position was that half of it was being paid for by this grant. Because that was one of the positions that was being looked at.
Correct.
So
Because-
we made a decision
Right.
based on a grant that we don't have now, or we may have.
So I think we should hold off on this, and we should be looking more at the grants that we currently have that are in place, and making sure that we get the funds from the ARPA that weren't used. We should look at the Building Healthier Communities and write a letter to the Building Healthier Communities people, asking to shift some of the grant money from some of the columns it was in, because there should be some money left in there.
There is not money left in those
It
other
was all
columns.
spent, or just transferred?
Transfer.
That's all spent.
Spent or transferred.
That was transferred. Anything that was left open from the facade improvements was,
But there was also money in there for wayfinding signs of $20,000. There was money in there for website and for.
those were spent.
And for translation.
I think most of that
And
was
was it
spent.
spent where it was supposed to be spent?
Yes.
Well, I would not change this tonight. I would wait until we make our final adjustments in another
Let's do
week
that,
or
so
two.
they're
And give,
chasing the grants
and give them time to find the grant funding.
And then we can make a decision on it.
Then you
Okay.
can.
That's what I would do.
So we'll see where we are on the grant for the last, we'll
Because
follow up on that grant.
there should be enough grant money to help fill that in.
I think there will be, but I hear you. All right, going to the, we brought up the assessor. We talked about eliminating, we have 2 full-time assessors, 1 part-time. We talked about eliminating 1 assessor. That'll go back to a union decision, which I believe will probably be based on seniority. And so what I'm saying is we should proceed, assuming we're going to remove 1 full-time assessor position.
So the issue in the assessor's office right now is that we've had to have a consultant here, I believe, since just before, well, during the reval, correct?
Right.
So just before the reval, the assessors that we had left, and in order to have a reval, you have to have a certified assessor.
Correct.
So we've had to have a consultant as a third person in the assessor's office. What was the total spend for having 3 people in that office so far?
Or more importantly, what was the spend on the third-party, one-day-a-week person that certifies the work? That's, I think, the question we want to know, is what's that party?
We moved him to 1 day a week.
Right, he was working 2 days a week.
We moved it to 1 already.
He's working 1 day a week now to try to save some of the money because that position was not budgeted for in the current year.
And even last year, it was over. That line, the assessor's line, was overspent last year too, correct? Or no?
For '23,
Yeah. What's the total cost of
I'd have to go back and look at the total that we're
Right,
at
okay,
because
fine.
it was 2 days and then we've moved it to 1 for the remainder of the
It was
year.
close to 250 for all 3
right.
for the year.
That's for next year though.
Right.
That's budgeted at 1 day a week.
We change, yes.
for the certified.
Right. So what we're saying here, is this reduces the number by approximately 80,000. You can see the detail there. By removing one person, we have to make an assumption of removing one.
Yes, so it would be 89,175 would be the number instead of 72,890.
It's that 89,839 is the total.
89,830.
And that's removing, and it's not a position, it's not right now tied to one person or another person. It is tied to leaving the amount in the budget that you would have to have the maximum you would have to leave in here, because you don't want to shortchange it, depending on what the staffing changes would need to be. So you don't want to pull off a higher salary or a lower salary. You have to take off the lowest salary and leave the highest salary in there, depending on, so that you have enough money for staffing, yep.
So the request for the department for administrative salaries, never mind the health insurances, is $279,390 was the ask, because we were paying 3 people.
Correct.
Right.
And that was certification issues.
Yes.
Correct.
So the revised budget of 148, that's the salary for the person who's left over. That doesn't include the certified person who comes in one day a
That
week.
does, yes.
It does include him.
Yes, so the dollar amount, the 228.90, which is where it's at right now, includes three people, with the certified person being a 1 day a week instead of being 2 days a week. The 148 removes one of the full-time staff members, the lower of the salary, again, not tied to a particular person, just the lower of the salary, so we leave enough in there. That would bring that revised budget down to 148.
So that's one full-time and the part-time.
Understood. Yep.
And there is currently no reduction in the medical, because none of the staff members in the assessor's office have medical through the town right now.
Do we have a motion?
Do we have to go through the rest of this first? Or are we gonna take we're gonna
We
make
can do it one
motions
at a
on the
time.
line?
You can go one by one if you want.
I'd like to make a motion to lower the number E19, Department 115 administrative salaries, count number 1-115-190-0000-0000. Restructure department staffing, 1 part-time certified, 1 full-time staff to be determined.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Steve?
Yeah, Bob, my standard question, the impact on losing staff members, either there's going to be work that others have got to pick up, or else there's going to be work that doesn't get done when you're reducing staff like this. What's the impact?
The impact is there's work that has to be spread for sure. I don't know how much. Again, Anne Marie's going to have to help assess that, since that department falls underneath her, but we're aware of that, and if we have to increase it, we'll have to increase it with overtime as necessary. But right now, some work, we used to operate with 1 person in there. That used to be a 1-person department. When I left, it was 1 person. Now we're up to 2 plus a part-time. So we're hoping that the people that are down there now, both 2 new assessors, one of which I see out here, they're learning as they go, and they seem to be making pretty good progress. I'm assuming that they can handle the work along with the part-time person we've assigned.
Well, I think, Steve, I think the greater issue is the amount of money that we are paying due to the fact that we have 2 people plus a consultant. And we have a consultant because the 2 people are not certified. Once those people are certified, then there would be no consultant.
Yeah, how imminent is that?
Well, I don't know, we're not, that's the town manager's job.
There's a process.
But I think we're just looking at it from a funding level, right? We're trying to, we're funding a funding a department that shouldn't be that. Well, I mean, unless, we're funding close to $300,000 in a department.
Yeah, I know that, and I'm also looking back over 10 years or so and knowing how hard it is to get new staff in place. and it's hard to lose staff when you just got them.
Right, well, the reason that we were not able to hire a certified assessor, because if you look out in the assessor, the assessor's professional website over, in Connecticut, assessors that are certified are in such demand, kind of like with a police contract, that the salaries are very high. So the salaries are high, and because where we are, we don't have that space to move up there to attract somebody that's certified. So then we have to pay for a consultant, because you have to have somebody certified to sign off on grand lists that just happened. So I think that's kind of where we're stuck.
It's certainly the desire, I think, of this board to make sure that the parties in the assessor's office, the employees in the assessor's office, go through the certification process.
Correct.
And get that completed, so that we don't have to bring in outside consultants to certify the work.
That's the ideal situation, and our current assessors are taking those programs and going through the 5-step process to do so. So we're trying to train them up. In the meantime, we're stuck with a higher bill than we'd like.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, motion's on the floor, all in favor? Opposed? 6-1.
I think you gotta move on E20 and E21 the same way.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Troy. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? 6-1. Do we have a motion for E21?
So moved.
Thank you, Bill.
Second.
Thank you, Troy. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? 6-1. Next.
Let me go down to E23, get that one out of the way first. That was an adjustment to revise the general capital funding, so we have to deduct that 81,000. Anne Marie can explain that to you if you'd like more explanation, other than that sentence behind it there. The LoCIP money that we get, I don't know if you're familiar with that, from the state each year. There had to be an adjustment made to correct that, and Anne Marie did so.
So the state of Connecticut is changing how they do their LoCIP grants. It used to be a reimbursement type grant. Beginning with 2024, that we just recently received notification from the state. This will no longer be a reimbursement grant. They will pay this at the end of June of every year. And the entitlement, compared to where we were when we budgeted in fiscal '24, has gone up. So we have in our current year budget $85,000 for this current year's LoCIP. Our entitlement that we will be receiving is almost $127,000. So if you go to your last page of your budget, and you can see in the capitals, in the line items that I highlighted in orange this time, for the line item for the Hurlbut and Birdsall Street intersection redesign, because we have $41,662 left of 2024 LoCIP funds that have not been appropriated, the recommendation is to take the $40,000 out of the general fund budget and fund that with the remaining 2024 LoCIP funds. We cannot apply those to 2024 because they were not included in the 2024 budget. So using those extra funds, the recommendation is to move that $40,000 into the column for the state grants. Same situation applies with the original budget for fiscal '25. We had originally in the capitals put $85,000 in for LoCIP for 2025. The expectation from the state of Connecticut is that level funding will remain in place for fiscal '25, so we should expect to get that additional $126,000 next year in addition to fiscal '24. So again, we have another $41,660 or so of extra funds that we can allocate to another project. So the recommendation, and both of these were based on discussions with the Public Works Director, was to take the line item, a portion of the line item for the Brook Street Drainage Project, and apply the $41,660. The result of that overall is to reduce the general fund funding by $81,660 because that's shifting to state grants.
It's a financial shift.
Makes sense.
I saw everyone's eyes glass over. Good luck writing that one up, Kurt. Okay.
So what was previously being funded in the general fund in the last version is now being funded by grants. So you have less money coming from the general fund.
general fund, account number 1-1001-179-000-000. To revise general fund capital funding, adjusted for additional low sub funding, fiscal year 2024 and 2025.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Bill. Discussion?
Sorry.
All in favor? Unanimous?
Okay, the last item was I've got $300,000 in here for a budget request reduction based on discussions I've had with Mel over time here. I'm not talking about taking $300,000 out of their existing budget. I'm talking about taking $300,000 out of the next year's budget request. And I believe the school met last night, and I assume that they approved of my request begrudgingly, but I think they did. So I'm asking right now to reduce that school request, that 1.3 million by 300,000 into this current budget.
Can you tell us what that leaves for the increase?
The total increase for the total budget,
No, for the Board of Ed.
the Board of Ed is still $1 million in addition.
1,014,555
That's
with the $3,000 reduction.
$300,000.
$300,000 reduction, or 3,000.
So they're still left with $1 million.
$1 million, yes, from 22, from fiscal year 2024, the appropriation is 21,504,910. That would bring the appropriation to 22,519,465. So that's 1,014,555
Increase.
increase, correct.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion for the Board of Education, the request reduction, and definitely not a penny less. I've been with most of the Board of Ed on this stuff, and hopefully next year we can give them what they want. We can change some things around, so I make the motion to reduce it, 300,000, like I said, but not a penny less, which was told to me one time, so.
You mean more, not less?
Less, that's right, not more, 300,000. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Discussion?
I just would like to know if this is a shared sacrifice.
That's not really up to our decision.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Candy?
Yeah, I'd just like to, it seems that this discussion is had every year. And I think it's difficult because right now when we do, if we are to do this right now, and just so everybody knows, to be fair, you all haven't seen, what we've seen up here. People have read a little bit in the newspaper, and then what people have put out there on Facebook. This is still gonna be a 2.45, 2.5 mil increase if we make this cut. If we don't make the cut, it'll be a 2.8 mil increase. So, because every $100,000 is a tenth of a mil. Every $1 million is a mil. So at 2.5 mils right now, that is $500 to a house that's assessed at $200,000 in this town, which if you look at last year's reval is quite a few houses that are there. So while the board hasn't wanted to do this, and the board, everybody's always tried to do what we can do, right? And we try to give as much as we can. And when I was asking about grants before, and I'll follow up with more questions on grants, is because we try to find ways to keep the mill rate down. And so it's not that, it's not that we don't want to fund everybody, it's just where can we be reasonably, have it possible to get this voted on and passed. So that's kind of where boards have to make these decisions.
And they are definitely a tough decision because that's actually me. I'm just about that, the 200,000, so that's me going up, so I'm willing to pay my share like I shared before. I did vote both times last year to approve the budgets. Education is important. Where would we all be without our education? So.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Unanimous?
So that brings your revised budget total to 41,274,793. At that rate right now, that brings you to a proposed 2025 mill rate of 28.76. So just for comparative purposes, just for the board's information, the split between the budget as it's proposed right now, comparatively 2024 to 2025, our general fund was at, and I'm gonna give you just kind of rough numbers, and then the percentages are a little bit more important, 15,588,000 in 24 and 16,702,000 in 25. Last year, it was, for the general fund, 39.83%, and that compares to 40.38 for the 25 budget. The Board of Education funding, 54.95% in 24, which was 21.5 million. That compares to 22.5 million, and that's 54.45%. So again, comparatively, percentage-wise, the share between the general fund, the Board of Education, and then the capitals, 2 million at 5.21% versus 2.1 million at 5.16%. That split amongst all three of those categories of your budget has remained relatively stable from 24 to the proposed 25 budget as it stands right now.
If I've calculated it correctly, it's a 2.37 mil.
Increase, correct.
So 2.37 mil as it sits now. So I have some questions. We got the special revenue balances 2 meetings ago. And the opioid fund still has $21,487 in it. The NIPR fund still has $48,592 in it. You say there's nothing left in the Building Healthier Communities Fund.
Is there a file name at the bottom of that sheet at all?
Oh, what?
Is there a file name at the bottom of that sheet at all?
No.
On the bottom right?
Hey, look, it was in 3 pages.
I'm gonna try
It
to
was
take
with
a.
the head count summary. And this is
Yeah,
it.
it's a different file. I need to figure out which file that is. That's from Tom.
So again, I'm going to ask about these funds. So again, I'm gonna ask about these funds and where they can be applied in this current budget to help offset some things. Because the NIP money's been sitting there for a long time.
Correct, and that can only be used for environmental purposes. So that can be used for things such as hoods on your storm drains. That can be used for townwide cleanup of, properties and streetscapes. The NIP revenue is restricted to environmental usages only.
We're aware of the projects, and we've been working with Public Works to apply them to the ones which you had requested in the past.
Right.
So we're working on that.
Right, because that maybe will help us adjust a little bit more.
It might.
And any of the opioid money is restricted for use for opioid related reduction, mitigation projects.
As you know, we've had some requests for that from some of the agencies to support that with the opioid money, as
Right,
you're
but the
aware.
opioid might also be a good place to.
We did take a small portion of that is coming out
For
to,
social service.
for social
Correct,
services,
that's
But some of
correct.
that money might be good also to go to the schools to offset some of the stuff that,
I don't know
No.
if they have specific
Yeah.
opioid programs in
And
the
then-
school system.
are these the only grant monies out here? We have the recreation program balance, the Healthier Communities grant. Are there any other grant funds that are here that can offset?
Other than what's suggested on there with the reallocation of ARPA funds, no.
Okay, so the reallocation of ARPA funds.
Mhm.
Because the ARPA funds, we have some more, we're not as confined, right? So,
Correct.
and so there are people that were given ARPA funding to do facades or to start businesses. And some of those people have not used.
We're chasing those already. We've sent
Correct.
letters, we've had meetings, and we've sent legal letters. So we're going after that.
So if that money comes in, we could use that money to
Correct.
offset.
And and so the lower end of that, at the bottom of the page there, from what I recall, it's at the bottom of the page. The lower end is, I believe, 32,000,
For what?
the ARPA funds, the reallocated ARPA funds.
No, we don't have any of that.
Well, we've got about 30,000 we went after
No,
just.
no, there was an additional schedule, I believe.
3 pages. We got this, well, might be.
No, it's right here.
So we have available ARPA funds for reallocation of,
Correct. So on the low end, you're at that $33,000. On the high end, if there are obligations that we do not have, additional obligations that were made that we don't have to pay out, it is whatever that higher number is.
right, so is this 33,962 available right now?
Correct.
No, well, it will be.
So
Yes.
then I would put that in for the social services director.
Okay.
No?
We could do that. We can. But right now, Tom's, we're trying to collect all that because some of
Well,
that.
Well, I think you know
We
that
haven't-
some of that is whether it's collected, whether we have the money in hand or not, we know that that money needs to come back to the town, that
We
that
know
money
that
is
will
owed
change,
back to the
but
town.
that's
So we
another one
we
of those-
can reallocate
But
those
it's the same
funds.
thing as that 50,000. We don't have it yet. I've got to get it back first before we can.
But those, I think those are two separate issues, is the, the ability to collect and the ability to reallocate the funds.
Correct. So we haven't got it collected yet.
Right. I could ask another question
Go ahead.
about your precious fund. Yeah.
Which one?
The blight fund.
Well, which is,
I mean, have you looked at what we could use out of the blight fund?
I think realistically on the list of capitals would be the Elm Street. And that right now is only set at $10,000 coming out of the general fund.
But we could take it out of the blight fund.
Yes,
yeah, blight fund is pretty much open.
yes.
So I guess I would say, or ask you all for our meeting on Monday night is to have a little bit of information on these, the ARPA funds, nipper bottles, opioids, and blight funding, what we can use to offset a little bit if we
We'll
can.
finish. Tom's collecting all the data. What do we have and how we could disperse it? We've actually been working on figuring out how to disperse it to reduce the effect, the
Yeah.
negative effect. So give us some time to work on that. We'll work on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, well, as we say in the tax office, tick-tock, tick-tock. So if we can get the mill rate driven down a little bit more, like we're up 2.37, if we,
No, you're really at 254 based on the meeting we just had. Right.
just what?
On the meeting we just had, you're at 2.54.
We're at 2.54?
We
I
just,
don't know.
well, she was not at the last meeting we just had on the ad that
It's
we put
it's
back.
something we're going to discuss in a few minutes.
Yes.
Oh, that, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, then that could offset that then.
Okay.
So since we brought it up, let's talk about that. At one of our last workshops, we voted to reduce police asks, not current staffing, but additional positions that the police department had asked for. And upon speaking with the chief and learning quite a bit more about the needs of the department to maintain public safety, I think we need to look at the deputy chief position and putting that back into our budget for this year. That's what brings us from a 2.37 to 2.54, is putting that position back in. We don't have coverage for middle management within our police department to take care of administrative duties that need to happen. I've learned of some cases where things were put aside that were detrimental to the town in terms of not only safety but also expense. And I would move that we put that position back into this budget for this year coming.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion?
This is existing position
Correct.
in the 23
It's
budget.
in the existing budget.
Now you'll need to do the line items to put them back in.
I don't think you're ready. Do you have those line items?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So line item, administrative salaries, which is account number 1-210-190, 00000000. That is to move that line item from the current 132,000 back to 242,011.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
Next one.
Line item 1-918-900-0001-0000, FICA related to this salary. That would be to increase the FICA line item. I don't have the exact dollar amounts, but increasing it by $8,416.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Paul. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
Employee benefits pension contribution, CMERS, 1-19-230-0001-0000. That would be an additional $26,513 back into that budget line item.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
And medical benefits, employee benefits, 1-918-900-0002-0000. That would be an addition of $30,987 to that line item.
Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
That's why I just rounded up to 1.7. It might be 0.175. I don't know, but
Hold on one second,
Just
I'll
to
tell
give-
you.
all they need is an approximate at this stage. That's where the 254 came
You'll
from.
get exactly the number, give me 1 second.
That doesn't matter at this stage, but, okay.
Well, it's not a final number because we're still unclear how the social service one's going to work out. So it's definitely not a final number yet, but
That's what I'm saying, until we get the last piece in there, it's not.
Well, just so you have an idea of where your budget is that's gonna get printed and is gonna be available. It is, your revised number will be 41,450,720. That is a proposed mill rate of 28.94, and that is a 2.55 increase.
Anything else from the board? Public hearing will be set for Monday at our regular Board of Selectmen meeting at 7 PM in this room.
Move we adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yes. 6:45.